Hi friends, good evening. Welcome everyone for today's session on consequences of fake invoices under income tax and GST. With the introduction of GST law, if you see GST law, everything depends on the invoices. If at all someone needs to sell any goods, invoice is mandatory. Again, claiming of ITC, invoice becomes paramount. Along with the introduction, there were provisions with the inception itself. There were provisions for fake invoices as to what will happen if someone buys and sells turnover. Or someone is engaged into malpractices of fake invoices. What shall be the consequences? So, in GST, yes, these provisions were there from starting, but income tax, yes, we saw an amendment in Finance Act 2020, and considering the practices being aggravated, or this practices was being increased on in GST front as well. Income Tax Act also thought like, okay, it's better to have a provision for fake invoices, and what will be the consequences if someone is caught buying and selling turnover. So let's get started, friends. Before starting, I would like to acknowledge the effort of Sundar Rajan for getting this presentation done. The schema for the evening. So we'll be seeing in the overview the consequences of fake invoices under Income Tax Act, under GST, and a few of the judicial precedents, not specifically in income tax, but yes, in GST, as to what the courts have held and how serious is this issue is. The legends used CGST, Central Goods and Service Tax, GST, Goods and Service Tax, ITA, Income Tax Act 1961, ITC, Input Tax Credit, SEC would stand for section. Schema we have seen as to what we would be getting into in the next 20-25 minutes. Overview, friends. As I said, friends, in GST, the law for fake invoices, or the consequences of fake invoices, was there before. From starting itself, but in income tax, it has been introduced via Finance Act 2020. Again, why there was a need? Because fake invoice would result in increase or decrease in the total income, thereby leading to someone can use that as a mechanism to save taxes. Hence, it was paramount in income tax. Again, in GST, as I said, someone can claim of ITC in a wrong manner or in a fraudulent manner, wherein people can use that as a mechanism to claim ITC and reduce their GST liability. Section 122 and Section 132 of the CGST Act are there for consequences of fake invoices in GST. Again, under Income Tax Act, it is Section 271 AAD, which was introduced via Finance Act 2020, is applicable from 1st April 2020 for fake invoices. Under Income Tax Act, we'll see the levy of penalty shall apply in addition to any other penalty imposed. So it is not like if this offense, I would not say an offense, or this transaction of fake invoices have been covered under any of the other provisions, then there won't be any penalty. No, it would be in addition to other penalty being imposed. The penalty is imposed under following two circumstances: false entry in the books of accounts, so what, an omission of any entry. So what is false entry and what is omission entry? False entry is generally we have done a wrong entry past, and there is omission, or we have forgotten to pass any entry which is relevant for computation of total income. So if these two are the circumstances, then in such a scenario, penalty under Section 271 AAD can be levied. Penalty shall be imposed when the assessing officer finds the person having committed any or both of the above offences during any proceedings under the Income Tax Act. Penalty shall be levied to a tune of sum equal to this. Penalty shall be equal to the sum equal to the aggregate amount of such false or omitted entry. Friends, it is again not dependent. The penalty under Section 271 AAD is not dependent on the amount of profit or the amount of tax being paid, but it is dependent on the amount of false or omitted entry which has been used for the purpose of fake invoices. Again, as I said, it is significantly, the quantum of penalty is significantly higher since it is not levied on profit but on the amount of false entry or omission. penalties shall be levied even on other person if such other person causes or influences the original person to commit the offense. So here, friends, even the abatement of offense is also an offense for levying penalty under section 271 AAD. Such other person shall also be subject to the same amount of penalty as that of original person was. Only penalty is levied for fake invoices under section 271 AAD. Thus, it may not be considered as an offense under section under Income Tax Act. However, hence the question of compounding does not arise. So, friends, only a penalty is levied. There is no punishment. Hence, it is not regarded as an offense. But yeah, a wrongdoing or a wrongful act can be considered. No punishment. Hence, there are no questions of compounding provisions. What is the meaning of false entry? False entry includes use or intention to use forged or falsified documents, such as a false invoice or in general a false piece of documentary evidence, or invoice in respect of supply or receipt of goods or services, or to both to or from a person who does not exist. So there are wrong entries. There's some entries in the name of Mr. A. So there is a purchase entry in the name of Mr. A. So, and there is no Mr. A in existence. So if that kind of practice is being followed, that would be regarded as false entry. Invoice in respect of supply or receipt of goods or services, or both, issued by the person or any other person without actual supply or receipt of such goods or services. So only invoice being generated, but there is no provision of sale of goods or services. There is no sales of services or goods, and only an entry being passed to record that transaction in the books of accounts. In such a scenario, that would be regarded as false entry. Meaning of omission of entry: failure to record the transactions entered into by the person carrying out the business activity. The transaction has been carried out. So the, say for example, there is a purchase transaction or a sale transaction which has happened between A and B, and that has not been recorded in the books of accounts of neither A nor B. So that would be regarded as omission of entry. To fall under the ambit of penalty under section 271 AAD, such omission of entry should be included in computation of total income. As I gave an example, purchase and sale transaction, yes, that affects a computation of total income of a business person or businessman. That would be regarded under section 271 AAD. Some entries, if those are not connected to the computation of total income, then such omission of entry, even though it is an actual omission, still it would not be regarded for the purpose of levying penalty under section 271 AAD. So under 271 AAD, omission of entry should be included in computation of total income. So it would be connected to computation of total income. Consequences under GST Act. So we have seen under Income Tax Act what it means when someone passes a wrong entry, or someone passes a fraudulent entry, or someone misses to pass an entry, which has a bearing on the total income. Now let us see in GST what is the penal proceedings. Section 122 of CGST Act deals with penalties for committing various offences, which includes offences for issue of fake invoices, availing ITC or refund of taxes fraudulently, failure to pay taxes within 3 months from the due date, etc. With the intent to tighten the control of issue of fake invoices, Finance Act inserted subsection 1A in section 122. Besides the penalty under section 122 on the persons committing the offence, section 122 1A levies penalty on even the beneficiary of certain specified transactions in section 122 1. So friends, section 122 1 levies penalty on if a person has issued fake invoices, or person has availed any ITC in a wrong fashion, or fraudulently, or person has collected the tax but has not paid the tax within 3 months. So this was for the person who is involved or who is actually doing the offense. But now Finance Act 2020 inserted subsection 1A, which deals with penalty for even the person who is a beneficiary. So person who is receiving benefit from such fraudulent transaction, even that person would be would be levied a penalty of under GST Act. Specified transaction. So only with regard to specified transaction under section 122(1)(a), the beneficiary of a transaction would be levied penalty. Supplies any goods or services or both without any issue of invoices or issues of incorrect or false invoices. Issues any invoices or bill without supply of goods. So either supply has happened but there is no invoices, there is an invoice but there is no supply, or C, takes or utilizes ITC without actual receipt of goods or services, takes or distribute ITC in contravention to section 120. Section 120 deals with manner of distribution of credit by input service distributor, that is an office which receives invoices for services availed by its branch. So in these four circumstances, even the person who has received the benefit of such transaction, then even the beneficiary, the person who has received the benefit of such transaction, that person also would be made to pay the penalty. Any person who commits any offense mentioned above shall be liable to pay a penalty of rupees 10,000 or any amount equivalent to tax evaded or ITC availed or passed or distributed irregularly. Beneficiary of any of the transactions covered above shall be liable to pay a penalty of an amount equivalent to tax evaded or input tax credit availed or passed on. Hence, for the above mentioned four transactions, both the person committing the offense and the beneficiary will be liable to pay a penalty. Again, under section 122(1), person who is doing offense, amount equivalent to tax evaded. Under section 122(1)(a), person who has received the benefit of such fraudulent transaction would be liable for paying the penalty. Punishment for fake invoice. So this we have seen the penalty. Now whether there are any proceedings which are liable for punishment, yes, apart from imposing penalty, there are also for provisions for punishment. However, Finance Act 2020 additionally brought even the beneficiaries and the abettors. As we have seen, Finance Act 2020 brought subsection 1A under section 122. So a person who has received the benefit of fraudulent transaction shall be liable for penalty. Now, again, they have gone a step forward and said that they would be the person who has received the benefit of such a transaction or who has helped the person doing that wrong transaction of fake invoices. Those persons also would be liable for punishment. What is the punishment? We'll see in the subsequent slide what is the quantum of punishment. Transaction getting covered under section 132, which involves fake invoicing, are again, these are related to more or less similar to what we have seen under section 122, the specified transaction under section 122(1)(a). Additionally, there are a couple of more transactions. Collects any amount of taxes but fails to pay the same to the government beyond a period of 3 months from the date on which such payment becomes due. Evades tax or fraudulently obtains refunds or where such offense is not covered under any of the above clauses. So, in apart from supply of goods without any invoices or invoice being issued without any supply, fraudulently claiming ITC, there are two more transactions. Collects the taxes but does not pay to the government beyond a period of 3 months. Lastly, evades taxes or fraudulently obtains refund. Apart from the transactions which are covered above, if these are the 5 transactions, then yes, there would be a punishment for the person who is doing the offense and also is helping in the offense. And thirdly, the person who has received the benefit of such wrongful transaction. What would be the quantum of punishment or the tenure for punishment? More than 5 crores if the ITC or the tax involved is more than 5 crores. Imprisonment up to 5 years plus fine. 2 crores to 5 crores, 3 years plus fine. 1 crore to 2 crore, 1 year plus fine. The fine amount can be anything based on the circumstances of cases. Offences falling under any of the first 4 points that mentioned under section 132A and falling under punishment category shall be cognizable and non-bailable. So, if there are transactions falling under the first 4 categories, that is without supply without any invoice without any supply, fraudulent ITC, failure to pay tax to the government. If these are the 4 categories of transaction and the amount involved is more than 5 crore, Such offences shall be cognizable and non-bailable. So there cannot be a bail possible. So once there is an arrest, there cannot be a bail which is possible in these circumstances. In other scenarios, yes, bail is possible. Compounding of offenses. So as there are punishment provisions, compounding is possible, but friends, compounding once in a lifetime is possible. So if at all you are convicted for an offense relating to fake invoices, you can go for compounding only once in your lifetime. If you are doing that in offense for the second time, compounding also would not be possible. Judicial precedents. So we have covered out few of the recent judicial precedents under GST. As we have seen under income tax, the provision have been incorporated via Finance Act 2020. So we had judicial precedents under GST. In one of the case, that is Sanjay Digra versus Director General of GST, economic offences constitute a class apart and need not be visited with a different approach in the matter of bill. The allegations against them are serious and magnitude of fraud is to the extent of 127 crore, which arose due to issuance of fake invoices. So the quantum involved was 127 crores. Thus, in such a scenario, bail was rejected. So it was said that where the quantum was more than 125 crores relating to fake invoices, bail cannot be granted. Dadich IT Iron and Steel Private Limited, Chhattisgarh GST, Chhattisgarh High Court, they have said that there is a clear distinction between a proceeding drawn for the demand of tax evaded by the petitioner establishment and the investigation be conducted by Department of GST in respect of offence committed by an establishment by way of using bogus and fake invoices. So as so this High Court, they made a clear demarcation between proceeding for demand of tax, so proceeding for tax evasion done by the company, and proceeding for using bogus and fake invoices and illegally availing ITC. So these two are different offences which the Chhattisgarh High Court saw, and basis which the writ petition filed by the petitioner was rejected. The petitioner was claiming that both there can be one proceeding for all the type of offences convicted or done by the company, but the High Court said that both are different and proceedings would be different for both, and hence writ petition was rejected. Again, in another case, we saw that the information which was provided. So there was fake invoicing or wrong invoicing, but all the information which were provided were by way of statement under Section 70. That is only when summons were issued at that time the company or the concerned person provided the invoices or all the information. So before that, when there was normal GST proceedings and all, no there was no contention, or there was no acceptance from the SSC that yes, he has committed offense or he has done wrong invoices or there are fake invoices being issued. Thus, in such a case, grant of bail was rejected because the person came only when the summons were issued, came forward only when the summons were issued. So he did not cooperated rightly at the time of proceeding, and only when summons was issued, he gave those information. So in such a scenario, the High Court held that grant of bail is rejected in such a situation. So the conclusion, again, it's a welcome move under in Income Tax Act as well as GST. GST, they have strengthened the provisions, and also they have levied or they have issued or they have brought in penalty provision under ITA. Wrongdoings have to be punished. So there should be provisions, and even though lately, but yes, income tax has thought of these provisions. So now malpractices of issuing fake invoices or malpractices of buying and selling turnovers, that would stop, and these provisions are there to reduce or to remove these kind of provisions and ensure there is transparency in payment as well as collection of taxes. So these were some of the thoughts, friends, on consequences of fake invoices under income tax as well as GST. Any questions would be happy to answer, friends. Thank you, friends.